Re- Shalom, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 44th year. Today is Wednesday, October 29, 2025, in the Gregorian calendar. Since it is after nightfall, it is the onset of the 8th day of the 8th Israelite Hebrew month of Cheshvan in the Hebrew Israelite New Year 5786. Welcome to episode 37 of our monthly Root and Branch Association uh, Ancient Roots Mothering, Roots, Nettles, and Sage seminars with three mighty women of the God of Israel, one of whom is here with us in spirit. The other are, of course, the other two are also in spirit. They're also physically present in alphabetical order by last name. Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin from the liberated Lower Galilee and liberated Eretz Yisrael, and Mrs. Chava Dagan from the liberated Northern Negev in liberated Eretz Yisrael. I am speaking to you from Jerusalem. We welcome our friends from, I know, the United States. I'm not sure what the other person, where that person is from, but we're all from planet Earth from somewhere. So please, before we begin, I want you to encourage everyone to support the work of Rivkah, Chava, and Gilla. Eventually, I move very slowly. The data will all be up there, their websites, all the ways you can buy their products and services. And in addition to buying products and services, there are all sorts of work that you can do, volunteers, researchers to help in the ancient, mysterious once they called women healers witches because they were afraid of women, so they burned and murdered them in the Middle Ages. Thanks to the Holy Mother Church, God bless it. And the ancient traditions of the ancient healing arts, going back to our mother Eve, are preserved, maintained, and presented through an Israelite lens that's unique to the whole world, which needs this more and more, as in our pre-flood, second pre-flood, and second pre-Tower of Babel era, it gets worse and worse for people worldwide, as it also gets better. As Charles Dickens said in A Tale of Two Cities, it was the best of times, it was worst of times, which were all times, but it's really getting bad out there for all sorts of people, more than it has been in many years, as it gets better. So please support their work. And now, as Rabbi Hillel said, if I am only for myself, what am I? But if I'm not for myself, who will be? Lowell, that's me, welcomes your support for his work to build our 30-year-old since January 1995 Hebrew Bible based broadcasting network, English language conference, and lecture series from Jerusalem, Eretz Yisrael, to honor the Godland, Torah, and people of Israel and all humanity. And our 1-year-old, well, almost two, since January 2024, Henry Dunster College of Jerusalem. We are replanting the old Harvard in the New Jerusalem. Now, I don't expect you to know who Henry Dunster was, so I'll tell you. Henry Dunster was, for all practical purposes, the first president of Harvard College. Now, seeing what the campus and endowment looks like today, don't hold your breath. This is 400 years ago. The graduating class of 1642, dun, 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 had, I think, 5 boys. And the massive faculty of Harvard College then was Henry Dunster. He taught them all the classes. Our Anglo-Celtic Israelite Puritan Pilgrim founding fathers, they had the real Chalutz pioneer spirit, as do Chava and Rivkah. They just got off the boats and did it. They had a dream, and whatever's good about America and America coming back, much of it comes from them. And since it's so easy to destroy and so hard to build and plant, 400 years of work to make one of the world's great universities has now all gone up in smoke. Morally, intellectually, spiritually, theologically, the university is dead. The campus is simply a mausoleum in a giant cemetery. It's gone with the wind. and I don't think it can be restored. So we are rebuilding and replanting it here in Jerusalem with world-class speakers, with world-class ideas and world-class activities like these three mighty women of the God of Israel, Rivkah and Chava. And now, without further ado, let me hand over the mic to these lovely ladies, Chava and Rivkah, mistresses of the healing arts. This is our October seminar. It's all yours. I'm going up to the gallery.
Thank you very much, Lo Aryeh, a lion of our times. Um, you've inspired me. I think maybe Chava and I, and perhaps Gilla, can start a new Harvard as well. It'll be called something else. And we will teach all the classes and all the theology. And I keep thinking how we're going to do that. That's actually not a bad idea. That's what we need. We need something where we teach all the classes, which we could totally do. Um, we have what to say about things. We have a lot of learning that we've done. Let's think about that. Anyway, okay. So we had a great introduction today about the healing arts, which works out well for us because we are going to talk about herbal medicine today and about healing. Yay! Thank you, Sharon. So let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about your herbal dentist, your herbal oral health. And this came up, it comes up all the time in my family, but it's come up recently with my husband. He's going through a big dental issue and it's very complex. And I was thinking back with Chava about some of the other complex dental issues that we've navigated over our careers as both herbalists and mothers. Um, and so we'd like to go through that today. If you want to submit questions into the chat for us to answer while we're going through the material, please do. This would not necessarily be the time to wait until the end as usual. We will do a Q&A at the end, but send them in so other people can benefit from these questions and other people can learn as well. So there's all kinds of oral problems, oral issues that come up. I apologize for my lighting. I'm really trying to set this up, but it's not working. Better luck next time. So we've got everything from, sore throats or cold sores or cavities or, a myriad of other issues. I think I'd like to throw it over to Chava first, if that's okay with you, Chava, to go through healing cavities, because I think that's the most common, and then talking about how we brush our teeth, and we can jump off from there.
Okay, so there's a couple things about healing cavities. First of all, people ask me all the time, can it be done? Can it be done? It can be done. It takes massive amounts of dedication, time, catching it at the right time. There is a point where you can't, and so you need dental assistance. And but it can be done. So I will just kind of give my story a little bit. My son, oh gosh, how old was he? Maybe 7 or so. He was number 4. So all the others before him, we'd never had problems with their teeth. We eat super clean at home. There was no reason for him to come down with a mouthful of cavities, and like every single tooth had a black mark in it, black. And I didn't notice because I leave them all to brush their own teeth and take care of their own health and whatever. I cook, I'm here, I help, but brushing teeth is a personal responsibility, and we all do it at night, and we all do it in the morning. And he had no reason whatsoever to have these black spots in all of his teeth. But he started complaining about pain, and that's when I noticed. So as soon as I heard him complaining about pain, we opened his mouth, and it's like, what? What? How did this happen? We don't eat candy bars, and we're very responsible, and they get all their minerals and vitamins, and it since, he was born and he was nursed, never given a bottle or something, like there was no reason. I didn't, in my own head, I've done everything to prevent this. What happened? Anyway, here we are faced with this situation. Everybody has their own unique metaphysical challenges that we have no idea. So you never know where these things are coming from. I did all I could do, and it just happened anyway. So now we have to deal with it. Um, I didn't want to go, just like I never go, Baruch Hashem, up until now, to a doctor for anything except for maybe a broken bone. Yes. Um, so I said, okay, so how are we going to deal with this? And I just got into it. We have to realign the pH in his mouth. We have to remineralize. We have to kill off whatever bacteria is going on with these holes that's creating holes. So it's like a many different approach at one time. And we began, and again, super dedicated. Like my whole life and my son's whole life at that moment became focused only on healing his mouth. Nothing else. Everything else was pushed to the side until we could start seeing progress. So the first thing was, of course, the pain. He would drink, like mouthwash, salt water. I would put salt water in a cup. Before he went to bed, he would take it with him when he went to bed so he could wake up in the middle of the night and do that too. Um, Celery juice. I have to talk about celery juice. I have to shove it in everywhere, yes? But that was like a game changer for us. Sage. Um, so I created also a tooth powder, which we use until today, which includes clay. We'll go through all the ingredients afterwards, but clay, charcoal, herbs, and that's what it was. So on purpose, the clay pulls, right? It pulls out any kind of bacteria that are in the holes. Charcoal rebalances all kinds of the pH and kills off things. The herbs, antibacterial. I'll get into afterwards which herbs, but it varies all the time. And so he was brushing, he was rinsing, he was drinking on top of celery juice and these herbal teas. He also, think about what else he was, water with lemon. And we were just doing this over and over and over and over and over and over, many, many times a day. And again, we weren't eating sugar and candy bars and stuff, so I didn't have to stop that. But if that was the case, I imagine I would have, just because you don't want those added challenges. They are just challenges to an already challenged system. And then bringing up his own immune system so that his immune system could take care of it with vitamin C and these other herbs that we're going to talk about. And thank God, long story short, his baby teeth, which is what they were falling out at this different stage. And each time one fell out, that black spot, a new one was replaced, completely healthy tooth, one after the other until they were all replaced. And now he has beautiful, healthy teeth. And that's my story. And that's how I got into this. Since then, I have written a blog in English and Hebrew, which I'll share in the chat because I get questions all the time, all the time, all the time. And that's where it started for me. So, Rivkah, you can tell your side.
So, I've also seen some progress with very small cavities, and I spoke with a biological dentist about this, about remineralizing teeth. The work of, it's Weston Price, right? Is that right? Am I messing that up?
I know he did a lot of work on that.
Yeah, with about dental things would be a good resource. There's the Nourishing Traditions, Sally, whatever her name is that I'm forgetting. Probably somebody knows in the chat. So this biological dentist said that when it comes to remineralizing teeth, so that means remineralizing, we mean we're growing new teeth are bones, right? So we're growing new bone where the cavity was. We're generating new bone. And so a tooth that has a cavity can actually be regenerated. And what he said was if they're very small and at an early stage, that's a doable thing. And just like Chava said, you drop everything and that's all you do. It really takes so much focus. But in my understanding, some cavities are just too big to remineralize completely, and that is probably a time to seek help. So I'm not claiming, I don't think either of us is claiming that all cavities can be completely returned to solid bone. But if you notice something early on, you might be able to remineralize the teeth. I think maybe, well, I also want to say the celery juice, to me, I did find that helpful for this issue. And it makes a lot of sense to me. There's, kind of all these cell salts and things like that, and minerals in celery juice. And I just think you're giving the body everything it would need to mineralize. If you can do it, I would say that would be part of it. But perhaps I think to avoid cavities would be the best way to go. And so the question then is, how do we do that? If we're brushing our teeth, is it about how often you brush your teeth? Is it about what your toothpaste or what you're using? I remember when we were young moms, Chava, that people were talking about tooth soap and tooth powder and all these different things, and it was kind of it was new because a lot of us were just kind of using insert brand name here. I won't give pharma any more money, but the popular toothpaste that you could get at any drugstore, and of course we want things that are kosher too. That's an issue, and so we didn't really realize that we had options. I think as young mothers back in those days, 20 years ago, plus or minus. So when I started to look into it for my children and my family, I learned that in the days before pharma, people would use all sorts of different things to brush their teeth. So for example, people would use pure salt to brush their teeth. And when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense because again, you've got the salts, you've got the minerals, and you're putting it right on the teeth. But people would use a really good, high quality, mineral rich salt that hasn't been super processed. So not your table salt, but good, high quality salt. Insert side story here. My daughter went out with her friends and came home from the beach, and she said, "Mommy, I have a present for you." And she handed me this little baggie that she said had washed up from the ocean, and she had filled it with salt crystals that she had found on the beach in a place like a shallow pool that had there was evaporation. It was pure salt. And so we're using that now in everything. And one little grain of that tastes like the ocean. It's amazing. And it's nothing like, the Himalayan salt you get in the store or table salt, nothing like it at all. Super salty, just a whole story in every mouth feel and every bite or whatever, every little one grain of it. So that makes sense that some people would brush their teeth with that. Brushing your teeth with your own saliva. So saliva is remineralizing. You want lots of saliva. That's what's bringing the minerals into the teeth, and constantly that's what's happening at night, by the way. And so that's why the most important time to brush your teeth is at night before you go to bed, because you want anything, any sugars or anything else washed away. You want that pure saliva to get in and remineralize your mouth, because you're sitting there with your mouth closed for the most hours you probably do in the day, and can remineralize. In fact, when I was a kid, my mom taught us to brush our teeth first thing in the morning. And I realize now with some trial and error that if you're only going to brush your teeth one time a day, I recommend that that's at night. And I spoke with this biological dentist at Weiss. I said, I don't have a large sample size, but I believe that this really made the difference in the oral health of me and my children. And he said, absolutely. We all know that. In fact, brushing your teeth in the morning it's just a bonus. We want people to get into the habit or whatever, but we know that it's really doing brushing your teeth is really doing the most work before you go to bed. So I found that very interesting. Um, okay, so another option, which herbalist Susan, I learned from herbalist Susan Weed, is using the plant yarrow, Latin name Achillea millefolium. And this yarrow has the common name of nosebleed, and it's a hemostatic, and it's known as an herb to deal with very deep injury, deep cuts that even go to the bone, and can help regenerate tissue, even bone. But it's specific actually for the nose. One of its specific uses is for the nose in the case of a nosebleed. Another specific use is in the mouth. So when you're thinking ears, nose, and throat, this whole area is all connected. So that would make sense. And that being said, I would employ yarrow as well in some kind of ear issues, just because I know that it's so effective both in the nose and the mouth. So herbalist Susan Weed said that she had a person that she knew who would brush her teeth with yarrow tincture every day. I don't recommend using tincture on your teeth because it is alcohol, it's vodka. And it does feel to me to have a stripping down effect. But as Chava is going to mention in her tooth powder, which is another option, you can use ground yarrow as one of the ingredients, as well as clay. Some people brush with clay alone, and any type of clay will do. Again, clay is very high in mineral content. So we're getting those minerals for a period of time all over the teeth, which is very helpful. So I'll throw it back to Chava, where she can talk about her amazing tooth powder and why it's so effective.
Okay. So yeah, I just ran through them before. The clay. I would use bentonite clay, green clay, red clay, white clay, brown clay. You know, Dead Sea mud would work as well. Clay is just, it pulls and it pulls and it remineralizes. I mean, that's what it does. And it gives a good base for the tooth powder. And then charcoal, also pulls things out. Um, and then the herbs. So the herbs, I will use sage. Sage is always an amazing one for the mouth. Anything that's going on in the mouth, teeth, gums, whatever, everything. Sage for me, it could be ground sage or tea. That's what we did with my son. He would swish it around, and if he didn't want to swallow it, he would spit it out. But all the time, swishing, swishing, swishing. So I will just dry that and grind it up and put it in my tooth powder. Mastic. If anyone's heard of mastic, it's a bush. It grows wild everywhere in Israel. My neighbor was the one who introduced me to this. And if you take a bite or chew up a leaf, um, it just makes you pucker, like it sucks all the moisture out of your mouth. It is the craziest feeling. But when you put it in with the powder, with the whole mixture, it doesn't do that at all. But it is super, super strong antibiotic, like super strong and very, they call it mastic, which is like chewing gum. It's very potent for the mouth specifically. Anything going on with the mouth. I've noticed changes in everybody's whatever's going on in their mouths. As soon as I add the mastic to it, I pick the leaves, wash them, dry them, and grind them up. And then they sit in a glass jar. And whenever I make a new batch of powder, which is probably every 2 weeks, I will add that in. Once it's in there, it doesn't have any taste and it doesn't make you pucker and all of that. But it has an amazing effect on the mouth. So I also, for flavor, will add cinnamon, which is also amazing in your mouth in terms of antibacterial and tastes really good. Or cloves, or both. Cloves also have, these are things that are herbs that are specifically for the mouth. They do so much other as well, but they do so much good in the mouth. Um, mastic, and clove and cinnamon. I will even take, very rarely, because I don't have pine trees here, but I will take pine needles, dry them, and grind them up and stick them in there. Pine needles are amazing for vitamin C, and they also clear out the whole mouth. Um, that is about my tooth powder. It's charcoal, clay, and herbs. Make it super simple. Each one has, oh, and turmeric. Turmeric is something I don't always put it in there, but that's another very strong one. Antibacterial and everything else. And it also whitens. Also, the charcoal whitens the teeth. Um, yeah, that's it. I make it super simple. I don't add anything in. The cinnamon gives it a little bit of flavor, but again, they're just brushing their teeth, so I don't look at it, oh, it has to taste yummy. Oh, it has to be sweet. No, no, it's not Crest or whatever it's called. We do the job. Everything's got its place, and I will make that tooth powder, and everyone uses it. And then I'll tell you afterwards how we also use the tooth powder because there's another purpose for it.
So pistachia lentiscus or something. I'm probably butchering the Latin. I put it in the chat. It's also called gum arabic, and it was the original gum, as Chava said. It's people call it a gum. That's because typically the resin, not the leaves, as Chava uses, which I think is amazing, amazing information. I had no knowledge of that. But typically the resin is what's used. And so the resin, there's kind of a process for it. You have to like injure the plant, wait 30 days to collect. It's like very sticky and you chew on it. And that was used in ancient cultures, including our own, to clean the teeth and just keep that in the mouth and clean the teeth. And likewise, Chava mentioned cloves. This was also used, and someone came to our show a while ago when we brought up clove for dental issues and talked about how her grandmother, I think, would put a clove against her tooth or just put it in her mouth or chew on it, because she knew that it was important for her oral health, and she never had a cavity and lived to a ripe old age and kept all of her teeth. So that clove is really amazing, and it's especially effective when you've got any kind of tooth pain because it's an analgesic, so it will stop the pain. But it's also antibacterial, and it will literally kill the bacteria that's in your mouth. The great thing about the mouth is that while it's inside your body, it's also open. So you can open your mouth and look. Whereas if I have like an injury inside of my arm, I can't cut open my arm and look and see what's going on or something like that. So yeah, you can actually see the healing. So if one of my kids has an inflamed gum or something like that, we would either take some clove essential oil diluted in a carrier oil, as we've talked about many, many times, not neat. I'm against that. Many people are against using oils neat, even if they theoretically can be used neat, because it's in classical aromatherapy, we understand that it's very dangerous because body can suddenly go into anaphylactic shock. There's like a tolerance threshold that people can have for essential oils, and essential oils are toxic. They are poison and they are toxic. It's just a matter of how much. So diluted in a carrier oil, a little bit, a drop of clove essential oil, put right on the place, and or making an oil from cloves. So you can chop up some cloves and mix it with a much safer oil, like, I don't know, olive oil or even possibly a coconut oil, and infuse the olives into the oil, or even in a gentle heat. Since I brought up coconut oil is also used in Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Indian medicine, for what's called oil pooling. And so you can use other oils, but coconut is often recommended. It has a high mineral content, same kind of situation. You're basically putting a certain amount of oil in your mouth. You're swishing it around. As you're swishing it around, you're creating more saliva. You swish it around for a very long time. That amount of time can range from 5 to even 15 minutes. possibly more. I don't know. I've never heard of more than that, but you can work your way up to it. And essentially, you're creating kind of a mineral rich saliva stew in your mouth to bathe your teeth in, to help remineralize your teeth. So I'll bounce back to you, Chava.
Okay. So we talked about not just cavities, but that there could be other problems, infections in the gum or in the root before, without having a cavity there. Um, uh, Cold sores, anything going on in the mouth that is painful or inflamed. Um, my husband is one example. He had some kind of an infection. It wasn't showing on the outside, but it was completely swollen up from what you could see on his cheek and his jaw. So what I do in that situation is I take my tooth powder and I put a little bit. You can use herbal tea. You can use just water, just tiny little bit, just enough to make maybe a teaspoonful of the powder into a paste, like a mud, because it is clay. And then wrap it in gauze. Put that drop, that dollop of the teaspoon wetted tooth powder, roll it up in gauze so it sort of looks like a toffee or something, and fold in all the ends so that it stays, and then stick it right there like they're chewing tobacco or whatever you want to call it, and it just sits there as close to the area that is infected as possible between the cheek and the gums, whether it's up or down, however, wherever they can put it, that it's comfortable to sit in their mouth for probably an hour. Um, and then I would take it out and redo it. And what happens so far in my experience is that the inflammation goes down and the infection goes away. Because what is this tooth powder? It's antibacterial. It is remineralizing, rebalancing, it's pulling and pushing, and it's doing all these amazing things with these herbs and the charcoal and the clay. And it's exactly what you want for any kind of an infection. So it could even, you take a little bit of that powder, put it in water, and swish the water around. It can be used that way, and then just spit it out and do it many times. I like the idea of the gauze, just holding it in that spot so it can sit and really do its work for at least an hour, and then do it again. I would re-administer it afterwards.
Yeah, I have a cool story too about that. When my herbalist son Pele was little, very little, he fell and chipped a tooth, and this tooth was like a major issue for a long time. Um, and after a few years with the tooth like this, all of a sudden, above, it was his front tooth, above the front tooth in the gum, I'm going to point to it up here. What a beautiful face. Right above the tooth, there was this bulb that started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, I saw that it was white. It was filled with pus on the inside. And it started to get really big. It started to get so big that he was having trouble talking. It was sticking out under his lip. It was about that big. It was huge. And of course, I'm running him around in those days to dentists. Now, Pele, I love that kid. He's so wonderful. He would literally punch any dentist who would try to get near his mouth. Little guy, little tiny guy. He's much more polite and now. It was just when he was a little guy that he would punch dentists. But anyway, and I didn't reward him for that or anything. But he instinctively didn't want anyone near his mouth. And so we went through 10, count them, 10 different dentists. All of the dentists had the same conclusion. The conclusion was the tooth needs pulled. It's a major infection. This is a major issue. The tooth needs pulled. However, they wanted to put him under general anesthesia in order to pull the tooth, because I would have to hold him down just to have it examined. And they said that they wouldn't do it. And I said, well, this is kind of ridiculous. He's a child. It's a baby tooth, and I see that this infection is serious. And they were telling me, take antibiotics, take antibiotics. And I'm going, no, I'm not, and of course I'm giving him herbs to support his immune system. I was a less accomplished herbalist back then. This was probably 17 years ago or 15 years ago. I was still early on in my days, but so I said, this is crazy. Like general anesthesia, like let's just hold him down. I'll help you. My husband can help. We'll help. We'll hold him down. And every one of these 10 dentists refused. And I was angry and I was really frustrated. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go look for a solution because this is out of this world. And I'm so glad I did. I found a post of a woman who was not an herbalist talking about how she cured an abscess, like a massive infected, impacted, pussy mouth issue with 2 kitchen ingredients: apple cider vinegar and baking soda. So if you've done any experimentation in the kitchen, you'll know that if you mix vinegar and baking soda, what happens? It fizzes up, it explodes. Now, as a homeschooling mom, we would make those volcanoes with the kids and do the science experiments, and that's how we did it. We would use baking soda and vinegar, and it was always a delight to see, the whole explosion and the foaming up and everything. I didn't believe in it very much. I didn't put a lot of stock in it, but I had to do something because my poor child could not talk. It was a horrible thing. And no dentist would touch him unless I gave him a general anesthesia and brought him in for major surgery like that. So what I did, the first thing I did was I lanced when I was ready to begin, I lanced this abscess, I guess, this pus-filled situation. So I did that by using a needle that I disinfected with fire and lanced it. And what's amazing is that my child, who would swat at all these dentists, I sat with him. I showed him what I was going to do. I explained why I needed to do it. I needed to get some of the pus out, some of the bacteria out, and then I needed to flush it with this apple cider vinegar and baking soda. I could have used other herbs as well. And I might have actually used some yarrow and some other things at that time. But anyway, I explained the whole thing. He sat down and and I said, afterwards, we get a popsicle. Don't worry, Chava, they were homemade juice popsicles that we put in the freezer. They still taste good. No, none of the sugar. And I promised him a popsicle when we were done, which of course he did get. And he was very calm and had total trust. There's total trust. And I went in and I just remember like pressing on it from all sides, and blood and pus and tons of pus. And, just wiping it. And all the while saying, you're doing great. This is going great, just in a calm voice. If you're the kind of person who freaks out, that this isn't the job for you. That's not going to be a good situation. So I was very calm and reassuring, kind of flushed it out. And I told him, okay, after this, we have to do this. I think I was doing it 5 to 10 times a day. I would make a little paste. I would have him get ready, get in position. I would make the paste of the apple cider vinegar and the baking soda. And when it would start to fizz, I would grab some on a Q-tip and I would swab the area. I'll tell you, he squirmed more and was more upset about me swabbing the area than that actual procedure that I did. Maybe because he didn't get a popsicle after that. I don't know. But so we did that. And it was absolutely amazing that everything went back to normal, back to health, nice pink gums. Everything was okay. And we stopped. Now, usually I continue the treatment for about 7 days after the symptom has gone away, just to make sure that we've gotten rid of all of the bacteria. So that's what I did. And a couple weeks later, maybe a few weeks later, I saw the little lump reappear. And I told Pelly, let's go at it again. So we took maybe a week or so to swab it. I think everything was going back within 3 days. It was back down, nice pink, healthy gum. And he went on and carried on with that tooth in his mouth for another probably 6 years, maybe 7. Everything was fine. He used the tooth. It was great. It had turned dark because it was like rotting out from when it had been chipped, and there was nerve damage and stuff. But there was no infection in the gum. The gum always, and I always checked in, remained very healthy, and there were no complaints. And of course, that tooth fell out Well, maybe 5 or 6 years because he was still little. That's about how long it lasted. And then it fell out, and of course his teeth came in just fine after that, and everything was good. So this stuff really works, and that was a pretty serious issue.
I like that you mentioned the apple cider vinegar. I didn't write that one down. Apple cider vinegar. I mean, we all know eat an apple a day keeps the doctor away, whatever, right? When you put it in apple cider vinegar form, we make our own all the time. Just swishing it around in your mouth. I mean, that's like changes the pH of everything. It's so mineralizing and oh my gosh, just that alone. I mean, I know you're with the baking soda, that's amazing. But just thinking like on a day-to-day basis, using apple cider vinegar is so good. So good for your hair, for your teeth, for your skin, I mean, it's just such a wonderful and so simple and to make it at home and have it available all the time. Also for wounds, but also just for replenishing and building. It's amazing stuff.
It's important to say that some people have enamel deteriorating when they're using lemon juice, like that daily lemon and water or whatever, or apple cider vinegar. So not everyone's going to be sensitive in that way, but if it's not feeling right for you, it may not be appropriate to do something like that every day, only as needed.
Yeah, lemon water has completely strengthened in every way everybody's teeth, like so beautifully, so beautifully. Um, okay, so vitamin C, just taking vitamin C when you have any kind of an infection or an infected tooth, um, is obviously all by itself just immune boosting. Um, Do you want to go through like the very many different herbs that can be used in any of these situations, also in the tooth powder or just treating any kind of infections?
Yeah. So we covered yarrow and we cut and yarrow also for any mouth injury. So not only might it be helpful for a cavity, but it would certainly be helpful for what I was talking about with Pele or any type of injury, like if you've accidentally cut your mouth or cut a gum or something like that. And there could be some type of bacterial infection. Yarrow's great for that. And Chava mentioned sage. I actually will use sage and wormwood. I wouldn't say totally interchangeably, but a lot of times it's a little it's nuanced. Like both of them can work for the same thing. And so those washes, like Chava said, just you gargle with it or you rinse out and you can spit out. Depending on the preparation, you could even drink it. Um, that stuff is great. That's also really great. Gilla's company, if Gilla was here, she would probably mention her company is called Sage and Honey, and that's one of the reasons Sage and Honey is a fantastic remedy for sore throat. So it's not just about drinking sage and honey tea, but it's about gargling with it for a while. And the longer you can gargle with it for a bit, and then you can spit it out or swallow it and do it again and again with frequency, it'll knock out um, oftentimes sore throat or bacteria in the throat, strep throat. So I remember during COVID, we were running into people who couldn't go to the doctor without a green pass or a mask or this and that. And they were running into these everyday problems that were scaring the crapola out of them. And, something like a strep throat would be one of those things that you can absolutely, in most cases, resolve at home. And perhaps you want to do that. Um, Sage would be up there. Any artemisia, a wormwood, and oftentimes Artemisia arborescens is what's used in Israel. It's also called Sheba. You could use any type of aromatic in the mint family. So mint family would be sage, rosemary, peppermint, spearmint, lavender, different plants in that family would all be great for addressing bacteria in the throat, strep throat. You'd be gargling with it, doing washes, rinsing, not only in the throat, but also infections in the teeth or gums. Um, Myrrh Myrrh, is another good one. Frankincense too is used a lot. The resin, you can kind of suck on pellets. Fun fact, that was a remedy that was used by herbalists during COVID to both prevent COVID and if someone was in the early stages of COVID, to kind of suck on these little resin pebbles or whatever of Boswellia frankincense, it's called in English. And what else do I want to say about that? Oh, when people were losing their sense of smell and taste in COVID, a lot of times we were having success with Boswellia, with frankincense, just sucking on those pellets. So a lot of different remedies came up. One of them was like eating onions, smelling onions, an onion pack on the chest, a lot of breathing, steam inhalations of onions. That one actually worked for some people as well. But frankincense was also a very helpful one. Olive leaf could also be used for those washes. There's olive trees everywhere. Just pick the leaves. You can brew it with fresh leaves, or honestly, it's better to dry them. So just dry them out. And once they're dry, you can even add it to like Chava's tooth powder or your tooth powder if you choose to make it, or buy it from Chava who sells it. But olive leaf, you can make it a strong tea and swish that around your mouth, and that could help deal even with some viral issues like cold sores as well. But the best herb for dealing with cold sores or any type of viral infection is Melissa, which is called lemon balm in English, and the Latin name is Melissa officinalis, I believe. um, that's a super, super antiviral. And of course, linden, which the Latin name is Tilia, and any type of Tilia will do. A lot of times you'll get Tilia argentea here, but any Tilia will do, here meaning Israel. You could do gargles with that or just drinking that tea. It's very soothing and it's antiviral for those cold sores or things like that in the mouth. I'll pass it on to you. Maybe you want to cover garlic too.
Yep. Garlic is simple, it's at home, and it's right there. And so if we're talking about killing any kind of a bacteria, immune boosting, all of that, garlic, obviously is such a great choice. Um, and so I wanted to mention two things. Cayenne. When you're dealing with any of these kind of things, like how I would wrap it in gauze when I'm doing a pack inside the mouth, I would do just like a pinch inside of the clay and the charcoal and all the herbs and whatever, a pinch of cayenne. So you don't want to set their mouth on fire. But what cayenne is doing is bringing heat and circulation to that area, which means it's taking out the old blood and bringing in new, fresh blood to help cure and heal whatever is going on in there. Um, it's sort of like turning on the turbo. So everything's working great, but now you just gave it one extra step up and it really does like wake everything up without them noticing because again, you don't want it hot. You just want that circulation going in there. Plantain, I don't remember if you mentioned that one or not. Plantain, and then I'm gonna say it out loud. Comfrey. Oh my gosh, did I just say that? Comfrey, I love comfrey. I know everyone's got like these crazy, weird conspiracy theories that it's whatever. Just like any herb, you need to understand your own or your patient or whoever is involved, their constituency. Are they sensitive? Do they have liver problems? Everything needs to go into it. But comfrey is one of my top ones that I use. I use it in my tooth powder. I will make tea from it. They'll gargle with it. Tinctures. I mean, it can work in so many ways, but it is healing for bones, for teeth, for sprains for, all of these things. And so when you've got your mouth going on and there might be some kind of an infection or something dealing with the root or the bones, the sinuses, all of these moving parts in here, comfrey is a big yes for me. Even though I might be arrested for saying it, I don't know.
I think you're allowed to say it. You're just
Oh,
not allowed to sell it in Israel. I
okay.
think that's the issue.
That's I'm good.
Yeah, I think you're good. Okay, so there's an herb called Spilanthes, Spilanthes, Acmella, Acmella. It's also called the toothache plant. I don't have experience with this, but I just want to mention it. I do have seeds. Maybe I should share some with you, Chava, because you'll probably be able to grow it since I kill everything I try to grow. But I just want to put it out there because it's a specific to toothache. I have no experience with it. However, pine resin, which we haven't mentioned yet, and I'm marking these off as we go through them. Pine resin is super great. If you're out in the wild, there's pine trees all over. Make sure that you know what a pine tree is. It's the tree that's got those long needles that come in little bundles. Um, they're long needles here, the ones that you're going to find, at least in the north in Israel. And so it looks different up close, these needles, than like a cypress or whatever. If you're in America, you would run into firs and spruces that are sometimes mistaken. But the pine has got like the little bundle of needles coming out. So just make sure you identify that if you're not totally sure, with at least trusted three plant identification sources. But the resin from the tree, so if you nick the tree, that little resin comes out, that gooey sap to self-heal the tree. That's super antibacterial and antiviral. It's so great. You can use that on right in your mouth on cold sores, on different injuries. It's free. You can get it anywhere. If you don't want to injure the tree, and by the way, don't do that to the trunk. Go to a branch or a little twig of a branch. So behind me is a big trunk of a tree, if you can see in the picture. And then you see this little offshoot branch where my finger is. Find other, little branches that are coming off of that. Because if you cut in like this above my head, here's an image of that. If you go into a little branch like that, you're not going to harm the tree. But if you start cutting into the trunk, you could really harm the tree, kill the tree. And of course, bacteria and fungus and other things can enter the tree that way. And we don't want to cause harm to the tree. Even when you're pruning a tree, if you prune these branches, you can cut them off. This is an olive tree, by the way. It's not a pine, and I'm talking about pine, but just to show you, you could cut off one of these branches and as you're pruning the tree, and then cut it a bit and let some resin come out and collect that. Or let the resin come out before you prune the tree. Give it some weeks or some time to get as much resin out as you can, and then just prune that tree. But that's very helpful. By the way, if you're playing with pine resin, it gets really sticky and stuck to your hands. And if you try and wash that off with soap and water, it's just going to keep on being sticky. It can get on your clothes and all these other things. If you want to get it off of your hands, if you're applying it or this sort of thing, you'll need to use oil. If you just use any kind of oil and just rub it in, it'll come right off. Pro tip. Another plant that I want to mention is Inula viscosa. So it's called Tayun Davik or something like that in Hebrew. It's Inula viscosa. They always change the Latin name, but it's related to Inula helenium, which is elecampane in the Western herbal tradition. This is basically the Israeli elecampane. It's also called fleabane. The Arabs call it the cure for 40 ailments. So this particular plant is a wild weed. You can find it anywhere. It's very sticky. Make sure you've checked at least 3 sources to cross-identify. But if you take those, the sticky part is the medicine. That's also what gives it its camphor type smell. If you take those leaves and you dry them and you go like that when they're all dry, or you grind them up in your mortar and pestle or in your blender or whatever, you could add that to a tooth powder as well. You could also pack it on a cold sore into a wound. It's very similar to yarrow in how it's used. And of course, yarrow, Achillea millefolium, does not grow as a wild weed in Israel, but Inula viscosa does. So for those of us in Israel, that would probably be the most accessible plant, and it's a wild weed you can use as much as you want. I encourage you to take as much as you want. Take more than you need, because that plant makes everyone bonkers, because it just comes back and it will take over yards and fields, and its roots are so strong that it's invasive, and you can really have trouble getting rid of it. The other one I wanted to mention that I think is really important as we're wrapping up is propolis, bee propolis. So when I was talking about the throat or a strep throat, even sore throat, the throat where you get up in the morning and it hurts to swallow and your throat is so, so sore, or your kids are crying saying it hurts, and they're miserable. This is a propolis moment. So making a throat spray with propolis, that has never failed me for those kinds of sore throats. It consistently and reliably knocks it out of the park every single time. So I really like that. But of course, you could use propolis right on some type of injury. It's antibacterial, it's antiviral, it's antimicrobial, it's all of those things. It's much like pine resin in that way. It forms like a seal. So you would think in general you wouldn't want to seal in bacteria or something like that. But when you use the propolis, because it's so disinfecting, it's okay. It's okay to use on an open wound. And certainly in the mouth, as saliva is constantly washing over it, it will work its way out within a short amount of time, perhaps I would say up to 3 days maximum, and probably much, much before that. And it's safe to ingest. It's safe to eat, of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't have mentioned it. And echinacea, astragalus in combo, elderberry, and Chava mentioned garlic, and I did too. Anything that's kind of immune boosting, whatever you would do to boost your immunity. Vitamin C, Chava mentioned. All of those things you want to help support your body. The last thing that I have on my list, Chava, is golden seal, and I say it with trepidation because golden seal is an endangered plant, and to my knowledge, it does not grow naturally here in Israel. So anywhere you get it from, you really should be above and beyond careful to make sure that it was sustainably harvested, because it's an endangered plant for real, as my kids would say, fur, no cap. So, but it's super powerful, golden seal. And golden seal is a super intense antibiotic type of herb. And if you're dealing with something very, very serious that could be potentially life-threatening, that would be the herb I would go to, beyond something like garlic or echinacea astragalus or any of these other herbs that we've mentioned, just because it's such an emergency herb. So, Chava, any other thoughts to close out?
One last one, just because I have them growing everywhere, is eucalyptus. For me, pine is also the resin, but it's also the needles. We use it, and with eucalyptus, I use the leaves, but I also use the resin. It has sap coming out of it. It has a time in the year when it kind of has shed its old outer bark, and then underneath it is also with pine. It will just, outgrow its old skin, and when it does that, it opens by itself, and we collect all of the resin, and I would just put it. It can be a gargle, it can be anything for the mouth, for the throat, inside the lovely powder. Yeah, that would be my last one. Not to forget.
Okay, I'm just hunting for Chava's video because Chava made a video about eucalyptus for Ancient Roots Israel. And I'm hunting and I'm hunting and I'm hunting, and hopefully I can throw that into the chat as well, where Chava will tell you more about eucalyptus. Or I'm sorry, yeah, eucalyptus, that's right. In fact, I just found it. So here we go. Okay, hang on, I think I stopped my recording for a second. There we go. Into the chat we go. I hope you can see it there. I think I also made a video on pine. A lot of these herbs that we brought up, we've touched on it lightly. We've done more in-depth videos about that. This is all free on the ancientrootsisrael.com website, as well as our YouTube channel. So avail yourselves of this amazing resource that we've all created for you. I think we're good to go. We're happy to do a Q&A. I saw some questions come up in the chat. Some of them I'm just not qualified to answer. One person did ask, I'm sure you'll get to this after the story, which I don't think we did. But my question is, how do you know when a cavity has reached the point of no return? And in this person's case, it's an adult molar, hard to clean in the back of the mouth. Do you want to comment on that, Chava?
So my first, I mean, I don't know anything, nothing. I don't know the history. I don't know anything. But if it was me, I would go hardcore with all of these things that we've talked about and how I took care of my son's teeth. And by the way, I broke a molar, completely chipped off like half of it. I don't even remember how it was, whatever. I just remember feeling like whatever. And so I did the same thing. I did the same protocol, hardcore, never went like a moment without. And my tooth healed itself, thank God. It completely created a scar tissue. I went to the dentist afterwards to see that it really did what it did. And he was like, "How did you do that?" I'm like, sit down and I'll explain it to you. So it really is possible. But again, you have to be super hardcore, really, really dedicated. And if you see that there is no progress within a week, I wouldn't wait and I would just go and do whatever you have to do. But if you feel like maybe just the pain went away, it doesn't look any different, but maybe you don't feel pain, then you know you're on the right track and you would just continue on that path. But you do have to make a decision at some point. You don't want to push it too far because then it's really, you've got messed up things. You have to use your intuition. You have to feel your mouth. You have to be in reality and not be like, oh, it'll be fine, and then you're ignoring the situation. Really sit down and be with yourself and be with that tooth all the time, praying, meditating. I mean, I'm talking hardcore. So if you're also not ready to do all of that, I would just go straight to, whatever you need to do. But I would give it a little bit of time and then see the progress.
We talk about this in our herbal first aid course as well. If you're feeling like this is out of your wheelhouse and you're panicking, which Chava said, listen to your intuition, but also, apply logic here. If you are not calm and you feel like, oh my gosh, and you're freaking out, it's going to impede your ability to logically assess what's happening. And that's not the time to work on it either. That's the time to go to someone who knows what they're doing and has seen lots and lots and thousands of cases and worked on it. Chava, I'm not qualified to answer this, but the question is also thoughts about using homeopathic cell salts. Homeopathy, I use it. It's not my wheelhouse. Do you have any thoughts?
No.
Okay.
Not helpful ones.
What?
Not helpful ones.
Okay. I mean, I've seen homeopathy work. We've explained it. Chava and I also did a show where it was just the two of us and Gilla wasn't here. We miss you, Gilla. But we did talk about different modalities, and I think we covered homeopathy and what it is. Not our wheelhouse. Okay, the name that I wanted for the Nourishing Traditions was Sally Fallon Morrill. Sharon wrote into the chat, so thank you for that, and I trust that that's right. Seems right. I think it was Sally Fallon something. A yarrow glycerite instead of a tincture. So I answered in the chat, but I just want to answer here. Glycerite is a sugar. And so I wouldn't use sugary things on a tooth, especially at night before bed, as I've mentioned earlier. I would stay away from glycerides on the teeth. Me personally, maybe Chava has a different opinion. But that's just kind of my intuitive, wisdom talking here. I don't know for sure. I've never done it. It's never come up for me. Chava, do you have any thoughts about that?
So glycerin is a sugary form, but it's actually considered an alcohol, which then inside the body will turn into sugar again. So I wouldn't deal with that. I never dealt with it. It doesn't, using common sense, it doesn't make sense to me. However, raw honey, which is different than like a pasteurized dead honey, which is literally just sugar. A raw honey, real, like when you put it in your mouth, your whole mouth and throat and everything closes up. That's like potent honey. That's a totally different thing because it really is healing. For a while, I was just brushing my teeth with this honey, nothing else, just to see what would happen. And everything was great. But if you have teeth problems, I wouldn't, I'm not going to recommend anything. But I just want to say that there is a difference with sugars, and a raw honey is a healing, unbelievable, medicinal tool that you can use in various forms. And I would not shy away personally from mouth issues with a real honey, not the fake ones.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. For anyone who doesn't know, Chava is also a beekeeper among her many, many trades. Um, but yeah, honey for sure. I've used that on different infections in the mouth, including cold sores. So, and that's also been very. Propolis is a bee product as well. But definitely, I would go so far to say to use it on cavities and other things too. I would do it, even though I don't really have data or anything about it. I would do that. Thoughts about tooth meridians and supporting the corresponding organ to heal a specific tooth. Chava?
Yes. I'm going to tell someone else's story. So it's not my story. I wasn't there, but it was a fellow student who was in a course that I was taking. Um, just to sort of exemplify what you're talking about, because it blew my mind at the moment, at that time. So she was having um, digestive problems, and she was sitting on the toilet. I'm not going to get gross. She was sitting on the toilet, and things were not moving like they were supposed to move. And she also was thinking, okay, the meridians and the teeth, and each one is, with the this and the that. So she got some floss, and she started kind of playing around in the one that she knew had a connection with the digestive system. And boom, everything was released, and she felt like, 10 years later. So, yes, I'm totally a believer, and I play with it myself. I haven't really dug into it, but from every story that I have heard, it's just a positive thing. It's amazing. Yeah.
That's amazing. And it reminds me, we should probably do a show on constipation because that afflicts so many people. I had no idea how big of a deal that was. And then when I was in America recently at the International Herb Symposium, one of my lectures was about rectal health and hemorrhoids. And I had like a huge class and people lined up out the hall, and um, constipation was like the number one issue for people, not only for the people who personally attended the lecture, but also because they're practitioners. I was lecturing to a group of our peers, but their clients as well. So that's a really interesting story. Okay, so I think do we want to ask if there's any other questions and just record it so other people could learn from this one?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? We're going to keep the recording going for just a few more minutes.
Patty, Cynthia, Sharon. I mean, I have my own, but ladies first.
It could be that they all came up in the chat. So hit us, little Arye.
Okay. So about concluding the program, I would just add some, what was it? Benjamin Franklin, Uncle, the Farmer's Almanac kind of simple homespun, good old-fashioned advice. I was reading, I like to read about military history, and the Romans were very practical with, the Greeks were good with philosophy and all, and art and drama, but the Romans were very good with engineering.
You're muted, or we suddenly can't hear you, but you're not muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, what did the Romans discovered that if the troops are traveling and you bring water mixed with vinegar and you pour it into a water supply, the vinegar will sanitize and clean out the water supply. So as they would troop around all over Europe, they'd have these sacks of water mixed with vinegar, and they would drink it themselves. And they realized it had sanitary and antiseptic properties. They figured that out. Another thing they figured out, and they didn't know why, they realized there was a connection between dirt and disease. They didn't know why. So in the Roman army camps, sanitation, and they realized if you burn, like if you burn you get things very hot, like your armor and your swords, you burn them, that it will help reduce disease. They were very advanced with surgeries. Soldiers cost a lot of money. They wanted to keep them in good condition. And they realized you have to heat up. They figured this stuff out. You have to heat up your surgical instruments and somehow it makes them sanitary. So what I do myself, I heard what you said about baking soda and vinegar. It makes perfect sense. What I do here, ladies and gentlemen, everybody out there, I make a concoction of cloves, cinnamon, ginger, and boiled water. And then I throw in lemon or vinegar or both. And you drink it, it only does good stuff for you. I don't think it can do anything bad. Furthermore, I learned that, maybe I learned it from you, that honey shouldn't be put in hot water, you put it in cold water. So in goes the honey and the vinegar and the lemon. You can't drink too much of it. It only does good. It's not even expensive. Another thing is if I'm cooking, which I usually don't, let's say eggs or cooking something like, I like to add a lot of water, and then I check, is it too spicy for everybody? I'll take all the spice, anything that's yellow and red, pepper, cayenne, curry, anything, throw them all in, the more the better. Like if like the Indians, what years was it, 10 years ago? I went with a friend from India to the tandoori restaurant. So I said, tell me, Navras, the truth. Is this just for tourists or is this real Indian food? Like in Chinatown, if you want to know it's real Chinese food, see where the Chinese go to eat, go there. He said, yes, it's real Indian food for Rajasthan, but not our spices, because Israelis would not be able to handle such hot spices. So they sort of Moroccanized it. And I said, I like spices so hot that the fire comes out of my nose and my ear. I know it's good for me. So that would be my simple suggestion for anyone out there. It doesn't cost much money. Water, vinegar, lemon, limes. That's where the term limings come from. The British doctors figured that out in the Navy, what, in the 1700s, 1600s, to prevent scurvy. I don't know how they figured it out, but they figured it out. And also concoction of cloves, cinnamon, and ginger. And then the more garlic and onion, the better. But there are some people, they don't like the smell, like in my family, like the what's that horrible smell in the kitchen? What did Grandpa do now? They don't like it, but girls, it's good for you. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense what Rivkah and Chava said. And again, I just add as an old guy that most Eastern practitioners of Eastern medicine would say that in an emergency, you need the surgery and the Western, what allotropic medicine, but it's preferable for
Allopathic.
preventative medicine. Use all of our techniques. And as Dr. Zelenko always would say, if you feel you're getting the flu, and early treatment as early as possible. The longer you wait, the harder it is. If it gets extremely advanced, then to come in with hydroxychloroquine and all the other stuff, or the Dr. Ralph Barrick, he's no good, discovered 10 years ago a way to do the same thing without any drugs, just purely natural substances. You have to do it immediately, because if you wait too long, like they said, that the tooth is so bad, then you go to a regular doctor. Also, not to neglect what Rivkah and Chava said. Go to what in Hasidic teach, the professor from Annapolis is a nickname for God, where a rabbi has a sick person. Oh, I'm so sick, I have aches, pains. Go to such and such a village, and they all get healed. They go to the professor from Annapolis. He goes to the village and says, I want to see the professor from Annapolis. We all get healed. And they said, well, that's God. Or no, he doesn't, or he gets back to his rebbe and said, "Go to the professor." Well, you didn't have to go there. You could go. The first address in any situation is ask the Creator to help you every day. Please help me today before trouble strikes. I'm on assignment from you down here. Please help me. And after trouble strikes, then you do all the other stuff. I got two healers here who know Torah. I think that's a basic Israelite teaching. That's the first address. And then do all the other stuff. And then I'll say one other thing, which gets into the realm of the supernatural. We call it miracles. A doctor would call it a spontaneous remission. My sister's 74. She's still a professor of pediatric ophthalmology at Columbia Presbyterian Medical School in New York City, what's left of New York City, and she fixes children's eyes. But she herself said to my mother, now that I'm 74, I don't think I should do surgery anymore because I don't have the same motor control, but I still teach. So why did I mention her? Oh, yeah. When she was in medical school, Washington University Medical School, what, 1973, she was in the children's cancer ward. And they didn't do this to be mean. They did it to prepare her for being a doctor. It's, you're working 100 hours a day, 100 days a week. It's not for everybody. As a nurse, a doctor, a healthcare professional, and Rivkah and Chava and Gilla are all healthcare professionals. Burnout for the healers is a big problem. So she said, every doctor will tell you what I'm going to tell you is true. You go around the wards at night, there's little Jimmy. He's 5. He has stage 40,000 cancer. He'll be dead by the morning. My job is you come back in the morning, cancer's all gone. She said, we have no explanation for this. It shows how little we know how the mind, body, soul really works. We know a few little things, but most of it we don't know. We have no explanation, and doctors get uncomfortable about it. It's a spontaneous remission. It's a big word for saying we don't know. In physics, if I would take this and it goes up, if you're religious, you call it a miracle. If you're not, you call it an insufficiently caused event. That's what Professor Michio Kaku once said. He's very entertaining, like Carl Sagan. He said, the Big Bang, the point before where we can't look beyond it, the singularity, 5 syllables. He said, what does it mean? He says it means we're embarrassed to tell you we don't know what it means, so we created a 5-syllable big word to say it's a singularity. Oh, yeah, that's amazing. So, but what I don't know what it means. So you have an insufficiently caused event and a singularity and the spontaneous remission. Answer: go to the professor from Annapolis and then go to Chava and Rivkah and follow their advice. And simple, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. It's all true. Simple things anyone can do, especially in our troubled times when we're all under assault in so many ways.
I thank you, Lo Ari. I just want to interject
I
because
was done at that point.
oh yeah, okay. I want to interject about the drink that you make, that while I'm super happy it's working for you, it's not appropriate for everybody. A lot of those herbs that you're using are and especially those hot spices can be very activating for people. So if someone is having a problem with diarrhea or something, those herbs could really be harmful, or nausea. Also inflammation. So a systemic inflammation, things like hot peppers and that sort of thing. Herbalist Susan Weed talks about cutting out all the peppers for that. So that's kind of the importance. I remember Ephraim Zelenko asking us about this before and saying there is no one size fits all, unfortunately, because some of the
Right,
things that are working for a lot of people can actually be harmful for somebody else. I just wanted to interject that.
right. Don't listen to me. I mean, I tell you what works for me. Listen to Rivkah and Chava. If people are very old or very young or very sick, they need special dietary programs. I'm just saying it works for me. But listen to them and don't listen. I'm just telling you what works for me, and it
It's great.
does.
It's very
But
helpful.
listen,
The personal
you
stories
got to
really
go
help.
to, as Abraham Lincoln said, a person who is his own lawyer has a fool for a client. Same thing with doctors. You go to real natural healers, the ladies, especially ladies in touch with centuries and centuries of ancient traditions, which are usually ladies who come from small villages in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, it's just true. They have it. They learned it from grandma and grandma going back to Eve. Did I get it right, more or less?
I think
Is that where
so.
it goes? All right about our first
There's
mother.
there's one there's one more question here too from Adia about hydrogen peroxide in the mouth. Chava, do you have any comments about that?
Um, no, I don't. I've never used it, and so I can't. I'm trying to think like what. It's very activating in the mouth unless it's highly diluted, but again, I've never used it, so
It's great in the ear.
it is great in the ear.
If you use it in the ear, so someone who may have something that's stuck in the ear, obviously that you may need to seek medical attention to really get in there and take it out. Don't attempt to do that on your own. But sometimes there's a buildup of earwax. I have an interesting story. Maybe we can close with this about my late Aunt Kay, who had spoken with my father. It's kind of a cute story. She was well into her 80s at this point. She was explaining to my father that she was going deaf. And my father, who's her much younger half brother, said to her, how do you know you're going deaf and whatever? And she said, oh, I'm losing my hearing and in this ear or both ears, whatever it was. And I went to the doctor and they said I'm going deaf and they gave me a hearing aid and it didn't work and nothing's working and I'm going deaf. And my father told her, well, did you try hydrogen peroxide? And she's like, oh, that'll never work. And he said, you just try it. You just try it and see. And the way you do it is you use hydrogen peroxide, which can be diluted or not, depending on what strength you have. And you basically lay down the ear you want is up in the air. You put a few drops of hydrogen peroxide into the ear. You're going to hear a lot of fizzing going on. When the fizzing has stopped, that's when you come up and I would turn my head kind of with a little force. You don't want to create whiplash or create a new medical condition by flipping your head to the side, right? Let's be adults, let's use common sense. But you flip your head to the side and many people will find that earwax and other things that were stuck in the ear come out. So as it happened, she did decide to try this, had a bunch of earwax come out of her ears and her hearing was restored. And her doctors completely mystified. They didn't see it coming. They must have not even checked her ears because they just assumed that when you're in your 80s, you go deaf. And that's all there is to it. And I always wondered how many people who are in their 70s, 80s, 90s are diagnosed as deaf or going deaf or get hearing aids when what could really be helpful would be a little bit of this hydrogen peroxide solution in the ear. So some wisdom from my father there. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for attending and Bezat Hashem, we will see you next month. Thank you so much.